Hello, today I am going to share with you how I was received as an American in France initially and how I navigate life and the cultural differences when it comes to interacting with French people here. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Patricia Brooks and I am an American living in the south of France, and now I help people who are ready to start the next chapters of their lives living and thriving in a foreign country, even though they might not know whether or not it's possible for them. And on this channel, I talk about my life in France. I talk about moving abroad and how to dig down deep and find the confidence and courage that you know that you have so that you can live the kind of life you know you were meant to live. And today I'm going to talk about how it is to interact with French people as an American, coming from that cultural divide. And I first want to take a few instances of what my initial experiences were and then go into some of the later experiences and then talk about what I call my Mary Tyler Moore moment. That was when I felt like, I'm going to make it after all. All right. So when I initially arrived in France in January of 2018, I was met with people who seemed very welcoming to me. I know that the woman who was the property manager of my first apartment, she was nice to me, and as the property manager, of course, she would be. But one thing that she did that she didn't have to do was that she invited me to her house for dinner. And she had a couple of other guests, and she introduced me to them. And I thought that was really warm and welcoming. And like I said, she was the property manager, but she didn't have to invite me for dinner. I thought to myself, well, that was really nice. That was really lovely. And I had good experiences with my landlady and landlord of my second apartment. Very helpful in me getting set up with a bank account. Very helpful in getting my first cell phone plan, for at least for that initial year. And I'm not sure, I think there was some novelty with the fact that I was a foreigner, that I was an American. And not to say that they would not have been friendly otherwise, but I got a sense that that was part of the curiosity. Well, a couple weeks in, I knew I had to get out and start making friends, meeting people. And I decided I was going to go to a laughter yoga class. Now, I'd never been to a laughter yoga class, but I love to laugh, and I read a little bit about it. And it was this session where people would get together and they would do antics and act like they were children and just laugh a lot. And that really appealed to me. So I got on the bus and went kind of outside of the city, didn't know where I was going. So that was challenging for me. But when I finally found the place, I'm like, here it is. I go inside. There are a group of 3 or 4 people standing around talking before the session begins. I, as an American, decide, okay, Patricia, you've got to do this. You've got to go over there, walk over there, introduce yourself. And that's challenging for somebody who is shy and introverted. But I did it because I'm like, Patricia, unless you want to be alone for the time that you're living here in France, you've got to do this. And so I did. I said, bonjour, je m'appelle Patricia. And I was greeted with stares. No smiles, no, hi, my name is, and I felt so awkward. I was like, oh, okay. And I didn't learn until later that, sharing your name, your first name is kind of a personal, private thing that French people don't typically do. And I heard that there was this joke that, French people might hang around with each other, but many of them don't know each other's first names. And I thought that was kind of funny. But so that was my first experience. And so initially I was taken aback. It was kind of like but I just went along and we had our laughter yoga session, which is really kind of strange, where you are acting like you're jumping in puddles of water, or that you don't have any money in your wallet, and you look and then you look up and then you just laugh with this big guffaws. And the other piece of laughter yoga is, you've got to look the other people directly in the eye, right? So these people 10 minutes earlier who wouldn't say, "Hi, my name is," were acting like a fool and laughing and looking me directly in the eye. And so it was this surreal, unusual experience. And I thought, I think my life here in France is going to get a little more strange before it gets normal. But so that was another one of my first experiences. But I didn't get the sense that they weren't being friendly to me. I just got the sense that maybe I came into a conversation that was between friends and all of a sudden I had interrupted something, that sort of vibe. So I think all in all, initially, people were friendly. People were welcoming. I did not feel put off. However, there are some instances I have felt like I have been dismissed, in particular when I'm dealing with business or administrative matters. And that doesn't feel good. When I went in my second year to get a plan for my cell phone after I moved out of that second apartment I had and was no longer able to be on my landlord's plan, I had to figure that out on my own. And when the cell phone store told me, you're going to have to pay us 250 euros as a deposit that's not going to bear any interest in order for you to get the cell phone plan because you don't have a European Union passport. And that was that. There was no question about it. There was no, I'll talk to my manager. It was just cut and dried. That didn't feel good. And that made me feel like an outsider. And I don't think it was something that was uniquely French. I think it was business. But there were other times where I felt like an outsider. And I could really get a feeling of what it might be like to be somebody who is angry as an expat or an immigrant to a new country because they're trying to make their way and they're met with these things that feel like doors are closing in your face and that there's not a compassion around it. There's not a seeming compassion around it. It's just a real abrupt feeling. Felt that way at the line at the prefecture when I would go to renew my visa. And the security guard was up there and all brusque and it just felt so foreign and it didn't feel welcoming. But I don't think that's the nature of French people in general. I have had other experiences too, a year and a half in my smaller village where people seem to be, I guess, less friendly. And not everybody. This was a couple of people. I remember I would go on my morning walk and I'd see the same guy walking his dog every single day. And, one day I decided I was going to smile and say bonjour. And we were like face to face, like it wasn't like he was across the street. And I said bonjour. And he did not respond. And that felt like a slap in the face. It didn't feel warm or fuzzy. But I made a note to myself, okay, just don't say bonjour to him. I didn't necessarily take it personally, but it was something that I typically hadn't experienced in the U.S. There was another time at the market where I said bonjour to a couple who was in line in front of me, and they were waiting for the vendor to go get change for the 50 they had just given. And our eyes met. I smiled and said bonjour. And neither one of them, not the man, not the woman, said bonjour in return. Now, I got a sense that these were people who were from out of town because our market is a nice market and we get people traveling in. But even so, that didn't feel really good. What I want to say here is that how did French people treat you when you arrived? How do French people treat you now? I think it's really hard to kind of paint this broad brush that all French people are short, or all French people don't speak, or all French people are a certain way. My experience in general is that they have been so warm and welcoming, even now to the point, especially since they know me, that I'm a fixture in the community, that they will give me tomatoes or apricots from their gardens as I walk by, right? Today, finally, I was invited in to the home of this couple who I pass on my morning walk just about every day. And we speak, and sometimes we'll have a 5-minute conversation outside. Sometimes we'll have a 25-minute conversation outside. But today they welcomed me into their home, and I was in a hurry, so I couldn't have an aperitif, but they said, well, next time, right? And they showed me their home and the view from their home. And again, it's moments like these that make me feel so welcome. So I wanted to go a little bit in depth about that because a viewer had asked me about this in a comment on another video. So that kind of covers off on how I was welcomed here in France, how I felt and was treated by the French people here. On a recent coaching call, a client who just settled here in France asked me, well, how do you navigate the cultural difference of interacting with French people? Because she was a little bit concerned that she was being dismissed, or felt like she was being dismissed by somebody she was dealing with in a professional capacity. It was in a business interaction. And it's been 7 years since I first moved to France. So now some of those experiences that I had early on where I did feel dismissed are fading away. And I had to think about, well, how am I now able to navigate those things in a way that feel less frustrating, in a way that ruffle my feathers a little bit less? And I think, time and experience is the key. But I wanted to share a few tips if you move to a foreign country that could help you to navigate interacting with locals so that you feel less frustration, so that you aren't feeling like this is something that I will never work through. One of the things I think that has helped me to navigate this, the slowness of administration of business affairs here, the seeming feeling that people are unconcerned or unbothered. That was something that somebody commented in one of my videos, under one of my videos, about how French people can be cool and unconcerned, unbothered. And I thought, yeah, I think as an American, that's how I would describe how some French people come across, especially when you're dealing with them in business matters. And I think one of the ways that I move through this now is that I follow a principle that was outlined in The Four Agreements, the book, The Four Agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz. And that principle is take nothing personally. So if somebody seems to be a little bit dismissive or cool or unbothered in a situation where in the United States, maybe they would be a little bit warmer, I don't take it personally. I don't say, oh, they're doing something to me, or, oh, they're doing it because I'm Black, or they're doing it because I'm a foreigner. I just don't take it personally. I let it roll off my back. Now, this is a skill that might take some time, and I think it has taken some time for me to get to this place where I'm like, oh, okay, right, it's just normal. So work to take nothing personally. I think a second thing that can help in this matter is, of course, if you're in a country that speaks a different language, is get as good as you can at the language, because then when you are, then you can start to ask questions about the process. Well, how long will this take? Or how long should I expect this to take? What are my next steps? What are your next steps? So that you have a sense of what the process is or should be, and when you might be able to follow up. I think my client's concern was being patient, and she exercised extreme patience when perhaps that was not the thing she needed to do, since it was a more urgent nature. But recognizing that things may move more slowly than in the US, that was something she did. But I think that the patience is a part of it. A couple of years ago, I had a problem with my steering column. I took it to the dealership. They said, oh yeah, it could be a really pricey thing, but we think we've got a part that we can put in there that could fix the problem. And so they said, oh, well, the part will come in a week and we'll call you and schedule an appointment. A week goes by, they don't call. So I call them. Oh no, the part hasn't come in. So I wait another couple weeks. I call. No, the part hasn't come in. Madame Brooks will call you when the part comes in. And I'm thinking I'm being dismissed, right? So it's a steering column, and I'm thinking, oh, this could be something that's really dangerous. I need to get this fixed. So I start to look for an independent person to fix my car. And I go and I have them look at it, and they're saying, oh, they have to find a part, and they're not that receptive either. I follow up a couple of times, and that is to no avail. And so I'm just patient. I kind of let it go. And then 2 or 3 months later, I get a call. Madame Brooks, the part is in. And I'm like, oh, the part is in? I thought that you have forgotten about me. Oh, no. Right? So I think patience is a part of it, but I think also asking questions so you can understand the process and what to expect can help with the frustration of things. I think also reading books on cultural differences can help a lot. After I read The Bonjour Effect, after living in France for 2.5 or 3 years, I was like, oh, that all makes so much sense. And one point in particular really stood out to me. They said that Americans' biggest fear is not being liked. That's why we smile so much. That's why we seem to be so friendly on the surface. But French people, their biggest fear is that they will be wrong. And I've seen this. I've seen evidence of this in my own experiences. And so now I kind of look at how my interactions with people, especially people I'm doing business with, might be their limited willingness to give me information or tell me what the process is just normally instead of my having to probe for it, is because they don't want to put themselves out there or put themselves in a position where they might be seen as being wrong. And I don't know if it's true in other people's experience, but I've definitely felt that. And so understanding where they're coming from and why they might seem to be withholding information can go a long way to cut down that frustration. All right. So what was my Mary Tyler Moore moment? I spoke about this in the beginning of this video. What I mean when I say a Mary Tyler Moore moment, that moment when I'm like, oh, I feel like this is really going to work out for me. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Mary Tyler Moore, the Mary Tyler Moore show was a 1970s sitcom. It was about a single woman who was in her late 20s or early 30s who had moved from a smaller town in Minnesota to Minneapolis, and she was working in a newsroom, a TV newsroom. And the opening credits are of this woman driving her car from her town to Minneapolis. And at the end of that opening credit, there's a part where she's all bundled up because it's cold in Minneapolis in the winter. And she's got her hat on and she's in the middle of the street and she's swirling around and she's got a hat on and she takes that hat off and she tosses it in the air. And in that moment, I get the sense that, she feels like she's really going to make it after all. And that's a part of the theme song. I know I'm going to make it after all. And so my Mary Tyler Moore moment was that when I bought my car here in France, when I had a conversation in French about car insurance over the phone, when I picked up the keys to my car and I drove it off that lot, I knew that I was going to be able to manage here longer term in France, longer than a year or just 2 years. And that felt really good. And I think being able to navigate, these interactions with locals in a way that doesn't ruffle my feathers, or that ruffled my feathers a little less in the beginning because I could employ some of these strategies. All right, so I hope this video has been helpful to you in kind of understanding why people seem to be so frustrated sometimes with the interactions they have when they're living in a foreign country. If you are interested in working with me, either learning more about my experience through an information session or being coached one-on-one or in my group program, there are a couple of links in the description where you can schedule that information session or schedule a discovery call to learn more about how you can work with me as a coach. And I'm going to put those in the description of this video. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, share it with friends, subscribe, and I will see you again next time. Bye for now.